Hello, hello. Well, on today's podcast of Better Leaders, we have a guest who is normally the host. So today, Erno is switching hats, and he's going to be the guest, or rather, we are going to have a conversation about something that Erno is very expert on, which is the inner development goals. And this is based on an initiative by the United Nations to have a sustainable planet by 2030. And so we're going to learn more about them and how we can get involved and help that initiative. So Erno, can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah. So in 2015, the initial global goals came to an end, between quotes, and it changed to the Sustainable Development Goals. It was a treaty, a principle that 186 countries of the planet signed, and that meant that we have 17 sustainable goals that we want to apply and accomplish by 2030, which is important for the planet, because if we don't do this, we will exceed the 1.5 degrees or 2 degrees increase in temperature of the planet. And so it's a really important thing that's going on there. And it's been slowly but surely adapted by countries, by nations, by governments, by local governments, by companies. But this year, we're halfway on that timeline to 2030 from 2015 scene, and we are not going fast enough. So the goals are about at 30% instead of 50%, so it's been slower than what we need for the planet. And also to keep in mind, we as human species, if we want to survive on this planet, we need this. Not just nature or animals, we need this too, right? So it's not just about our children anymore, it's about our own future, to be on a livable planet. And a couple of people 3 years ago said, this is going too slow, we need to do something different. And by the way, the SDGs are very intelligently and like external goals. And we believe that if we want to accomplish external change, we need first internal change. So it starts within. And they interviewed with the questionnaire, with lots of interviews, about 1,000 people and experts about what skills would a human person need to contribute to this change, to be part of the change. And they, in the end, came up with a list of 23 skills, and we can show them in a bit, and divided them into 5 domains. So that was phase 3 of the whole research and of all the publications. So the inner development goals is a framework of 23 skills and 5 domains. And it is like an open source framework, so anybody can use it. And what's been happening since then is an activation of people within countries who started what we call hubs, so meetings and people gatherings in communities to talk about, to experiment with, to do exercises with these skills and with the domains in the IDGs. And why am I so into this? Well, first of all, I think I agree. If we want external change, we need internal change. It's also they are very common skills. I can show you in a bit, but they are very everybody knows the skills. And since it's in a very easy framework, when I talk with people about it, they all see it. They all understand, and they all see how the importance is about this. So when I talk about entrepreneurs, or HR people, or just regular people, everyone understands the importance of this. And actually, I see also that in schools and education, particularly in universities and higher education, it's just flying. It's people really are introducing it and using it, incorporating in studies today. So it's easy to adapt to this one. And yeah, and that's why I started, being so involved with this.
Hmm. So I think it might be helpful to understand a little bit more about what the five, uh, what did you call them? Five
Domains.
domains are, and here see a sample of the behaviors so that we can kind of get a sense of this.
Yeah, I've put it on the screen now. So the five domains are at the top, as you can see: being, thinking, relating, collaborating, and acting. And below each domain, as I click through, you can see it. There are these skills. I will go through them slowly in a bit. But so there's five domains, and you can maybe say that this is also in the importance from left to right,
Mm.
but that's not really how I think you should look at it, because one person might be very good in acting. For example, me, I'm very good in acting, doing things, and I need work on relating, right? Or another person could be very good on being and needs more thinking, right? So it depends on individual capacities and qualities, on what kind of skills and domains you want to really pay attention to, or we need to start working first.
Well, I know we could talk about the specific ones, but my first question is that, I want to immediately, when this is over, I'm going to look up and see if there are any hubs in my community. So can I
Yes.
start a hub? How do I start a hub?
Yes. Okay.
Or what does a hub do?
Yeah, I'm gonna put it first on the screen to
Okay.
give you inner development goals community. So if you go to the website innerdevelopmentgoals.org, the website is in English, as you can see. There is a page in the menu which is called community.
Oh.
And when you scroll down, you see all the hubs.
Wow.
So you see them by country and by city.
Wow.
So when I go to, I'm not sure if it is US here, USA, right here, USA at the right. You see my mouse? Here you go.
Yep. Okay.
So all the hubs in the USA are here. And there's a contact person behind that, because somebody set up this hub and they acquired at the international organization saying, I'm going to start this hub, so please list me as the contact person here.
Mm-hmm.
And you can just look them up on LinkedIn, or just send them an email to find out what they are doing, when the next event is. And actually, yes, anybody can start a hub. Of course, it's smart when you are already in an area where there's a hub. It is easier to connect with the ones that are already there instead of starting your own next to the existing one.
Mm-hmm.
But let's say, for example, there is a hub there that have like a monthly meeting, but you want to start a network specifically for coaches or for leaders or whatever you have in mind.
Oh.
You can do that too, right? So you have the difference between a hub and a network. A network could be like country-wise, and you connect all the technical leaders, like what's your expertise, Gwen, and think about how the inner development could be important to these technical leaders, right?
Mm-hmm.
So anybody can start a hub, and the idea is that, well, for most of the hubs, the idea is that you organize events for attendees, so that people come and they will learn about the inner development goals. And what we do in my area, and I'm part of the team of my hub, is we organize monthly events. We usually have a speaker who is an expert in some topic which is related to the IDGs. For example, next week we have a professor from a university who has an expertise in technology and brain.
Oh.
And he's really into the inner development goals. He set a program up for the school for next year. and the topic is from SDG to IDG. And so what they are going to do is implement a system to incorporate inner development, so going inwards for students in the next college year. So, so that's he's gonna explain in this meeting to us as attendees what they are doing. So the idea, of course, is that we invite as a team as much people from educational background as possible, so that they can learn how one school is doing it and how they could hopefully copy it or use it. And then we have like 45 minutes of exercise. So we do a couple of exercises on the inner development goals to experience one of those skills that you can train for yourself, how you could do this. It's usually an exercise we do in groups or with two people. And often the speaker brings the exercises. And if not, we as a team will do that. But usually the speaker has good exercises from his field of expertise that connect with the IDGs. Does it help?
Yeah, that's fascinating. So, okay, so now let's go back to the actual behaviors and take a look at one. In fact, maybe later on you could conduct an exercise with me or something.
Okay. I think I always connect strongly with a couple of skills on these, right?
Okay.
For example, on being, to me, the inner compass is a really strong thing that I feel, and it's because I have a lot of experience with it, because I think it's important to have like long-term visions. So if you have a strong inner compass, you know where what's important to you, it's going to be a lot easier to make decisions. So if you're going to step into a project, if somebody's asking you to join something, somebody asking you to do something, if you have a good inner compass, it's going to be a lot easier to say yes or no to something that's coming up. And I think this is really interesting and important to have as a person, instead of just running after everything that comes onto your path, is to make for yourself really clear what is important to me and how can I contribute to this goal that I have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's
obviously
also. I think it's also important as a leader to have a clear inner compass.
Definitely. And I think if you are a leader in an organization, of course, you have the vision of the organization, you have the goals, and you have the long-term things of the organization. But also then again, for you as a leader yourself, it's important to have your own inner compass, so that you know, so you have your values and you have your inner compass. So at some point, maybe that the company decides something that goes against your values or doesn't align with your inner compass, and it's a good thing to come into conclusion for yourself. Is this something I want to commit to for a while, or do I want to stay here, or is this a time for me to move on, right? So that you know I'm making decisions for the future of my life that's going to help me, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, but there's other ones, right? You have integrity, authenticity.
So
Sorry.
I'm especially interested in self-awareness. Can we take a look at that one?
Right, of course.
Ability
So it says below, ability to be in reflective contact with own thoughts, feelings, and desires, having a realistic self-image, and ability to regulate oneself. So obviously this is really important, right? So you know exactly what I just said before with the inner compass. You know what you stand for, but you also are able to stay in contact with yourself, to have a good view of yourself. What are my things that I'm really good at? What are the things that I'm not so good at? What could I be improving? And so the being part for a lot of people is neglected in today's world, right? So they are so driven by thinking and in systems working in organizations and also in their personal life, that this being part is getting not enough attention for them, right? So they just follow what other people prescribe them to do, right? So they go to a school that their parents told them is important to them. They go to a job that the community think is important to you, where you make enough money. But in the end, they just run into a burnout because they have no clear view of what they really want. So self-awareness is really important for your well-being.
So it's not directly, there's not a direct link between being and saving the planet, but it um, is something that's important to develop as a human.
Yes.
Would you say?
Yes, because I think if you look at it from the relationship between saving the planet, if you become aware of where you stand for, if you become aware of what is needed to be done to make a difference in the world, it becomes easier to make decisions that align with that.
Mm-hmm.
So by not just trusting the traditional media or trusting companies with their greenwashing, for example, and thinking about products that you're using, think about the amount of garbage that you are producing. That's all about self-awareness, right? That's all about being. That's about how you want to act in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so actually it is directly connected to a better planet, but on a different level, right? So it's on a deeper level, right? So if you know and think about, so what I do impacts the world, what I do, like if I choose to fly, if I choose to drive, if I choose to bike, if I choose to buy this in plastic, if I try to choose to buy this product that that people throw away all the time, then you're making decisions that just are just what everybody's doing all the time. You're not
Mm-hmm.
making a difference. You're not making a change. So being yourself, being aware of who you are and making decisions that align with that, that's what we need to make the first differences. Well, and first it starts with you as an individual, as a consumer maybe, but it also then as a employee, how you work in your team, how you can influence that part. Pension funds in Europe are really important, right? So they invest in all kinds of companies, and they can decide not to invest in polluting companies or oil companies. So there, you can be voting on company parties that you really think about instead of just following directions of other people. So being a strong person, being a conscious person, I think is a really important part of making a difference.
Yeah, that's a great explanation. And I can see how being involved in a hub would be really affirming and really help strengthen my own being because I would get support from like-minded people. And that would strengthen my resolve and my ability to act on these things.
Yes, correct. And I think an important thing that I always remember is Katherine Hayhoe. She's a professor in ecology. I'm not sure what her title exactly is, but in Canada. And she says an important, and she has a great TED talk on this too. An important thing about this, if we want to make a difference, we want to change the world and how we pollute and everything that we do, dialogue is really important so that we have conversations about it. So, and if you have like a community of people who think they also want to make a difference and make a change, it's going to be easier to have dialogues with the same people, of course, but also it will strengthen your position in dialogues when you talk with other people who think differently about this topic.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. Excellent.
So here's thinking, so cognitive skills. And for example, critical thinking skills and critical reviewing the validity, I cannot pronounce that word.
Validity.
Validity, right, of views, evidence, and plans. But to me, one of the things that I think is really important is long-term orientation and visioning. Because most of the people today are very busy with short-term things, right? So we're busy with what do we eat tonight? How can I get from work to home? what I'm going to do this weekend, and everything has to do, no, not everything, a lot has to do with convenience. So if I'm working long hours, it's convenient for me to get food um, directly from the supermarket or from somebody else, which is packaged in plastic, because to me, convenience is important, because I already tired from my work, from my job. But if you look at more long-term things, so what can I do to make changes to my life? Because I really want to have an impact for the long term for myself and for my children. Then when you really think about this, then also your small daily decisions are being impacted by this long-term vision. And that's why I think this is a really important thing. I'm not saying the other ones are not important, but this really is important to me. What's one thing that you stand out for you?
Well, I'm kind of curious about the sense making.
Okay.
What does that mean?
Skills in seeing patterns, structuring the unknown, and being able to consciously create stories. So, of course, if you look at what's going on in the world and the stories that are being told about it, it can be sometimes very difficult because there's a lot of conflicting stories. And also, if you look at how the weather is changing, for example, how the water, how we get the rain or storms or drought in some seasons, it's all changing, maybe a bit too quick than we want. But the scientists have been talking this for a long time already, and they have made clear to the people who wanted to listen that we are heading in the wrong direction. But the trends now is that most people also now feel it. So the summer is getting so much warmer than it was before. We have to do with droughts. We have to do with flooding. We have to do with all kind of things that are happening, and it's caused by actions that we have done in the past as humans. And so it's important to see, so what patterns are there, what's going on, and not just consume information on this, but just go on your own investigation and see if you can see patterns in this, and to make your own stories, right? So because stories, sharing and telling stories is really important to bring the message forward.
I don't mean to put you on the spot, Erno, but I have a question about, or a request for advice, I guess, maybe. So I'm thinking in my community, I have a strong value around not using chemicals on my lawn. And I have a boulevard that is technically part of the city. It's part of the city government. It's not my boulevard. It's not my property. But I've taken it upon myself to plant prairie grass there that has long roots. It doesn't need water. It's uniform looking. However, the grass itself, I could mow it, but it really, there's a stalk that comes up and it has a little flag on it, so it's pretty, or in my opinion. And so it's uniform, but we have a 6-inch rule in our community, that an ordinance that you have to keep your grass has to be, your lawn cover has to be less than 6 inches. So a couple of weeks ago, I had a representative from the city stop by and ask me about my weeds on my boulevard. And I said, well, those are not weeds. There's not a single weed in there. It's very dense. It keeps weeds out. It is a prairie grass, and it's ecologically friendly. And I sort of dared him to give me a fine and make me take it out. It was like, and so here I am trying to do the right thing to save the planet, and the city is not cooperating with me. So that's one thing. And the other thing is, my neighbors in our quest to have beautiful lawns, use weed weed control chemicals. And I'm ridiculous about this. I hand pull my weeds, and I actually have a weed-free yard for the most part. And every year some new weed comes up, and I have to tackle it. But overall, my yard is pretty. It's not the prettiest yard, but it is carefully tended.
Hmm.
So, what do you have any suggestions for people who, like the people who are going to be in the hubs are people that are like-minded. So how did those hubs influence the community to become more self-aware?
Yeah, I just gonna show you. I pulled up this book, which is called The Carbon Almanac. Um, as you can see, it's a foreword by Seth Godin.
Mm-hmm.
He's a famous marketeer. Wrote a lot of books, but he's not the author of this book. There's hundreds of authors in the book, and they have all kinds of tips that you could do, but also true stories. So they're explaining with science what's going on with the weather. And so the US is a bit different from where I live in Europe, but as one of the things that he's showing, Seth, and he's also sharing that in his podcast, is these gas-powered leaf blowers, right? I'm just giving an example, right?
Mm-hmm.
So these gas-powered leaf blowers are really terrible for the environment. They make a lot of noise, but by the way, they are just terrible for the environment. So what they did first, for example, in his community, he decided, so as the owners of the homes that live in this community, we decide that when people come doing the grass or the trees or whatever here, they can only use electric machines, so no gas-powered machines anymore. And then obviously he says next time they came when he had this rule, they came again with the gas-powered because they acted like they didn't know, and they just sent them back. So that's, I think, when you have like strong ideas about this, how you can do this, this is a great example how you can do this in a small community. Then what they also did is they went to the, I'm not sure if the city or it probably is the city, that you can have like also rules in the city like you have with the grass part, but and the weeds, but they have a rule now in the city, which you could implement with when you have like people signing up for a poll saying we don't want gas-powered leaf blowers anymore in our town, then you can arrange this kind of exclusion for your town about this kind of tools. So there's small things you can do. And I think, like I said before, the most important thing that Katherine Hayhoe is saying is having conversations with people who think differently on these. And if I'm looking now at the part where you talk about grass and the weeds, weeds is, of course, a human invention, right? Weeds is a plant. It's just a plant that we don't like, but it's still a plant. And grass is a very monotone product. I have grass, I have a lawn too, but also I try to have also all kinds of other plants. And I think lawns are not very biodiverse. So if you look at lawns, not a lot of insects will be attracted to lawns because there's not a flower there. There's not something growing in there that's useful to them. So it's easier for the human to maintain by a grass mower, and also, of course, by chemicals to exclude the weeds. But I think if, as humans, there is a difference between having it well economically and feeling well, so well-being. As humans, we should be looking for well-being, right? And spending time in the garden with the hands in the soil is immensely contributing to our well-being. how weirdly this may sound, it really is, because it's really, it calms you down. So your brain will just start processing things that's important to you, but you will not think about the stupid small things. So it helps you to lot, and especially when you do this with a community, on not your own lawn, but you do it on the streets where you live. You will also increase the sense of community, which is also, again, very important to the well-being of humans, because we have to have a feeling that we belong to a group of people. And if you have a group of people who think similarly about this, and we think it's important how our neighborhood is looking, we can do something like this. So having conversations with the people around you, not necessarily about we need to change the world, but we can just start with our street and look at ways how we can make it more biodiverse, so that we attract insects. We have butterflies in the summer, we have bees in the summer, and all these insects are really important for our own future as humans. So I think it's so, I would say, easy, but it shouldn't be difficult to have like a conversation about this with your neighbors, and see how you can, as a community, change just this small part in your world and take the first step. Does that help?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, thank you. And thanks for sharing that, the Carbon Almanac too.
Yeah, it's a really great book. It's thick, but you don't have to read the whole book. You can just go through it to just very specific tips that you can do for yourself or with the community. So but it's also very clear about things, what's going on, and what is really bad for us and for the environment.
Mm-hmm.
All research, all backed up by good research, and everything is listed in there. So you can also track down the research and look it up as if you want to go deeper in this. So it's a really good book for this.
Excellent, excellent. And I did hear something about the gas mowers being outlawed. It's somewhere in my community. I'll have to go back and take a look at it, but I did see that go by.
Good.
What else would you like us to know? What would be helpful for us to know so that we can become active at this?
Yeah, I just want to go back to the to show you again some of those skills, right? So relating, I think this is like I just mentioned before, right? So let's say, for example, connectedness, right? So it's having a keen sense of being connected with and or being a part of a larger whole, such as a community, humanity, or global ecosystem. Like I just described before, you can make this very small. If you think about connectedness with your neighbors, with your family, everything that you can do with connectedness is just improving your well-being as a human. I mean, maybe not directly, maybe you don't feel it right away. It doesn't feel like you're getting money in the bank or something. But the plus is also somebody else who you have a connection with also improves their well-being. So you're having a great impact on other people as well. And we also know by taking is less important to us as giving. So giving gives us more satisfaction than actually taking. So giving connectedness to other people is also a great part for well-being. And empathy and compassion, right? So being able to relate to others, to listen to their stories instead of just directly go into the fight. We have so many topics today that are so hot that if we talk about it, we get into a fight right away. But being able to listen and to show empathy and to look at their standpoint in this position, into this conversation, just it makes it so much different, the outcome of your conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And collaborating.
I'd like to make a comment about the connectedness, because that also is a way to reduce stress, and people are under a lot of stress these days, and there's a lot of talk about burnout, and helping people is a way of reducing stress. And also I lost my train of thought. Maybe I'll think of it. But okay.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, stress burnout. We have been talking with our team and also in the podcast before about how we can improve the working conditions, improve the conditions of people to create better humans. Yeah, the IDG's summit, so the Inner Development Goals Summit, was 3 weeks ago, and it's a huge summit. It was in Sweden. 1,500 people were there live, but 7,000 people joined online. No, sorry, 5,000 people joined online from all over the world. And one of the first presentations on day one was about how we feel as humans. And today, now, there are more people dying from suicide than any other cause. So the immense stress that we as humans feel today, if it's right or not, that's not important, but what we feel leads to a lot of people to take their own lives, to make decisions to take their own lives. That, for me, was a terrible insight from that event. So sad to hear this, that so many people are just in such a psychological situation that they feel that there is no way out, and the only way out is to take their own lives. And I think that's unequal. That's not what we want, because we have a great world. We have lots of money. We have lots of resources, but just they're all very unevenly distributed, and that's why people are in pain and so much trouble. And by just feeling connected to other people, and just giving them space, and again, like showing empathy and compassion and having conversations with these people, gives us an opportunity and also a tool to change this, to work on this horrible situation right now. And that's not even about the environment or about nature or anything. It's just humans taking their own lives because they don't see any way other out.
This week I've been conducting group coaching sessions with people who work in a corporate environment, and it's a global group, and it's interesting how you talk about this, because one of the topics that came up yesterday is something that I think is very important. This is a global company that has employees all over the world, and every team is international. It is combines people from different countries. And I was speaking with a group who was mostly in Asia yesterday, and they were talking about, they have to learn English, and that's very difficult. And it's difficult when they're talking in technical terms. They understand the conversation, but when it comes to making a personal connection with one another, it's very difficult, because they don't always understand the idioms, and so they always feel they feel more connected with their same language partners than they do with perhaps their American or European partners. And it has such an impact on productivity and well-being, I think, that if you feel that kind of stress, that you can't communicate or aren't being seen as a person in your work, that people can appreciate your technical expertise, but if they don't see you as a person and an individual, that is very difficult. So, and it takes longer to have conversations. So, we have these strict or rigid meeting schedules that we have to adhere to, and it just takes more time to communicate with someone who speaks a different mother tongue. So I think that's also a consideration for leaders, that to take into account the environment, the global environment, and the impact that it has on us. It's wonderful. It's amazing that we have the technology to be able to do this, and there's a human component that we need to pay attention to.
Yeah, I agree. I just thought about this with the whole conversation we have about this topic. Is there is a great new series on Netflix for people who have Netflix. If you don't,
Mm,
you can look it up on YouTube as well. But Netflix is really convenient in one place, which is called Live to 100. And this guy, I forgot what his name was, and I can't read it in the screen. I have to go to this screen. What is his name? It doesn't show what his name is. This guy, the researcher, I forgot his name. Sorry for that, but you can look it up. Oh, Dan Buettner. Dan Buettner.
mm, mm,
He's done research to the so-called blue zones. So the blue zones in the world are where people live longer than any places in the world. So they have more centennials. So people live over 100 than any place in the world. And and he's visiting these zones and asking questions and finding out what's happening in these zones, what's different than any other place. And they're like, I think there's like 9 points that you can find which makes a difference, what probably turns these zones into blue zones. And also, if you look at it, if you will be paying more attention to it, you will probably also live longer. So it's a really interesting show, and it shows the importance of connection. It shows the importance of course, of exercises, but not in a way that we think of it going to a workout. No, it's about exercise, of doing everything by hand, right? So he's visiting this tribe in South America, where this man of 80 is still daily chopping his own wood, and also not just a man, but also an old lady is doing the same thing. So this guy from 82, he's riding his horse and driving up the cows to new meadows every day. They're not exercising in a gym or running like I do, but they just exercise, but just doing the work, just work every day, and just doing very mundane and simple things, but in a way, and cooking and eating together is an important part of life for them. But also relaxation. So doing the work, for example, starting at 5 a.m. and then working to noon, and then the afternoon, relax. Just spend time with family and just do a nap or take a nap or just relax. So also relaxation, instead of just planning a day completely full, is an important part of how they live. I think if you watch a documentary, it's really interesting. It's funny. It's easy to understand. It's a good start to go into this detail of finding ways to work on your relating and collaborating part, right? And also the being part is actually being taken care of, because it's spending time on your own and reading, for example, or meditating. It's also talked about. I think that's it's these skills are not difficult, right? So they're all around us. So we all use them every day, right? For example, courage, the ability to stand up for your values and make decisions, and also take action on that. I think it's easy. It speaks for itself. It's not difficult. But the idea to have them in one framework and to create exercises on this, I think that makes a difference.
mhm, mm. Well, this has been wonderful, Erno. Thank you for this introduction to the inner development goals and helping us understand better what we can do, and for giving us the resources um, to get connected and with our community. And it just sounds like reinforcing a very lovely way of life. Not only is it towards saving the planet, but it's making life more pleasurable and meaningful here now. So thank you.
I want to add one more thing, because we have a monthly online meeting with practitioners, so people who are really working with the inner development goals, and we have people just starting with that and people who have been working longer with those. That's not important. But at some point, they asked us, so what is your challenge? What is something that you're struggling with? And I was working with Coachdotme. I was in the team, and we were just talking about habits. And I think it's really important to develop habits, to develop your way how you act. And I came to this inner development goals idea really enthusiastic, but I couldn't combine the two, right? I couldn't figure out how I can make this work to work on the same goal with the two of them. So then somebody came up with the idea with inner development or IDG habits. So now I've renamed it to inner development habits because not everybody knows what IDG stands for. But so what I did was, so if you look at the skills that we just looked at before, there's always something that you can think of. What's the smallest thing that you can do to start working on your improvement of that skill? So daily exercise or daily actions, that's what we believe in at Coachdotme. And how we work to create better humans, or not to create, but how we work to help people to become better humans or better leaders, as in this podcast. Daily actions are important. So what's the smallest thing that you can do, for example, to improve your skill of courage, or your skill of your inner compass, or your skill of critical thinking, right? So what's the small thing that you can do every day at the same time to really work on this consciously? And I think that was, for a lot of people, it still is a memorable thing. People talk about it. People say, that's a really great idea, how we can do this. And it's so simple, it's not difficult, easy to do. And if you have questions about it, if you want to work with this, right? So here on the screen right now, there's the QR code of my profile on Coachdotme. You can connect with me there. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. That's also okay. Also, you can find me just there with Erno Hannink. And ask me questions about it. I'm really happy to answer all those questions and to help you. If you want to start a hub, if you need help there, if you have questions where you need to be, just ask them, and I'm more than willing to help you out with that part.
That's excellent, Erno. Thank you.
So let's close it off.
Okay.
Like you already trying to do. Sorry for that one.
Well, thank you very much for your discussion today. It's been fascinating. I know I've enjoyed it, and I am really happy that we were able to highlight this in Better Leaders today. So thank you, Erno.
Gwen, for having this conversation with me.